Today on the Ever Onward podcast, we have Callie Zamzow. She is the CEO of Zamzows, 12 locations here in the Valley, 92-year-old family business started by her great-grandparents. We've been wanting to have her on for a while. This is one of our pillar local companies to talk about her family business, the growth of the business, and what she does here in the community as a philanthropist. Can't wait to hear today from Callie Zamzow. Prior to hearing from Callie, we will have Mark Cleverly and Holt Haga giving us an Allquist update.
Good morning. Mark Cleverly, Chief Leasing Officer with Allquist, here with Holt Haga.
Holt Haga, VP Leasing, Allquist Development.
It's been a few weeks since we did an update here, and driving in this morning, I thought we could give a quick update on 10 Mile. So by the time this thing hits the streets, this update, we will be the owners of additional 34 acres out at 10 Mile. We already own 78 acres, so we'll own a total of 112 acres out there.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be good to go through just kind of where we're at and kind of what we're seeing and the position that we're in right now. So if you want to give a quick update, I'll kind of talk a little bit too about the entire 10 Mile area, but give us an update.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I remember when you look at projects, we were working on, 10 Mile crossing. And I think this was back in 2017 when, Tommy started looking westward and had, I think we started targeting this piece back in like 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, it was back when we were still with Gardner. I remember working on it. It was like 2016. It was really when Paylocity came to town. I mean, and we had we had to find a spot for him.
We had to find a spot.
Yeah.
And so it was the east side of 10 Mile and the freeway on the east side. Mm-hmm. And no sooner did I think we had just delivered Paylocity and we were looking at our second project when Tommy's like, hey, there's this other piece over across 10 Mile we need to look at.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that was maybe a year or two later, maybe 2018, 19. But, just thinking about it, how long it actually takes for these things to like get momentum and come to fruition. I think that was the first time we made a run at it, was back then. And so we've been looking at this piece of property for a long time.
Yeah.
It was kind of assembled two pieces, but it's a great project. It's sort of, I think when we took down the first piece and now we're taking down this additional 34 acres, which is like a grand slam. It's like checks all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
It's got everything. And so, but when you look at where it's positioned in the valley, it's just such a strong project because it's on I-84. So you've got the freeway, the exposure.
Yep.
160,000 vehicles per day, highest in the state by like 3 times. And then it's bookended by the two fastest growing submarkets, in our state, right? North Meridian and South Meridian.
Yep.
And so it's incredibly strategically located. And now with the new Highway 16 corridor going in, right? Like you throw a baseball and hit it from this project.
Right.
It's just like the positioning of the project.
I can hit a baseball that far.
You could throw it. I could get it like a quarter of the way there. I could hit a golf ball.
Okay.
But it's just like the location, I think just starting with the location, it's just it's like right in the path of development. And so I think when guys like, when our team, steps back and looks at this and say, what are we going to do here? Is this going to be a successful project? How long is it going to take to stabilize? These are all things that we kind of consider, but the location in and of itself, fundamentally speaking, is really as good as it gets for the unit mix and the product mix that we're talking about. And we can dive into that too. But it's kind of got the project overall kind of has everything, right? It's like we've got residential, we've got some industrial, we're gonna have office, we've got hotels, and then we've got kind of this like retail power center.
Yeah.
That we're working on.
Correct. And I wish, we'll be ready soon to announce all these groups. We're close. We're not quite ready.
Yeah.
But
we're not going to jump the gun today.
As soon as we can, I think people will see, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense why all this activity's come here. Right. So backing up to 10 Mile Crossing really quick. I know we don't have a lot of time, but really quickly, we built about 1 million square feet of office. There's nearly 1,000 units of multifamily. we met with Shields. I remember flying into Fargo, North Dakota, almost 10 years ago. It was like 9 years ago. Flying in, it was one of the scariest flights of my life. We don't need to get into that, but it was, that took time, right? I mean, that took like 7, 8 years to even finally get them to open their store. So you got Shields over there who, like, what we're hearing about their daily visits and their annual visits is off the charts. And then you go across the street, and what we're going to add to that is going to be amazing. It's going to be where everybody wants to congregate. It's going to be, I mean, people, I mean, you talk about live, work, play. It truly is, that entire area of 10 miles truly is a mixed use live, work, play, right? I mean, it's really cool to be a part of. We're set to close on it tomorrow, May 15th. So excited to to continue to work at 10 Mile, right? We filled, out of the 1 million square feet that we have out there, we're 100% leased.
100%.
We are there is no vacancy in our office buildings out there, which is incredible. Yeah. Right. I mean, you look at the office market in general, and you hear it nationally, and people come to our market, and they're like, how do you guys do it? Like, well, I mean, you're strategically located in great projects, and we live in a state where people want to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got
simple as that, right?
And you've got such a critical, fundamental macroeconomic driver, which is probably the strongest economic driver, population growth.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got like this funnel of demand. And so really it's like, we kind of have to deal more with the supply side of the equation. And so it's really just, are we overbuilt, underbuilt? Are we built to equilibrium? But really it's like the demand side is there. It's kind of an interesting, we're very fortunate to find ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, it's going to be exciting to talk about 10 Mile.
Yeah. And I think it's
in the near future too.
It's probably worth bringing up too, just on the retail side. Like we've done, kind of our initial, we go out to very specific sort of uses and groups and restaurants and companies that we really want to see there.
Yeah.
And we've got commitments from those groups for a handful of the pads. But we're also going to have like multi-tenant retail buildings that we're going to be coming. We haven't come to market with those yet. We're going to be coming to market with those. We will have, space that is for lease, Class A retail space in this power center that we will be announcing some very exciting anchors and all that. So, but more to come, obviously, and we're excited to sort of bring all this to fruition and come to market with all this stuff. So,
love it. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Good update.
Thanks, Mark.
Callie, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
This will be fun.
I think so too.
This will be fun. Well, it's fun to spend some time. I've spent a lot of time in your stores.
Oh, well, thank you. We appreciate that.
No, I think it's just a staple here in the Valley and your family. The ads on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot to talk about. But start by just telling us a little bit about the family business, when it started, and just a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, so Zamzows is I think we're at 92 years now. Started in 1933 by my great-grandparents. Both of them had come here with their families. So that's the first generation of Idahoans.
Where did they come from?
One came from Minnesota, and the other one came from Missouri, I think. Yeah. Interesting stories there, too. My great-grandfather, actually, he stowed away on a train with his brother, and they were headed to California, actually. And they stopped off in Meridian, and my great-grandfather stepped off the train to go get a sandwich, and when he came back, the train was moving, and he couldn't get back on the train. And so he stayed here in Meridian, and that's how he ended up here. Yeah.
What a great story.
Yeah, it's wild.
And then, talk about, coming out west, just looking for a new life, looking for, opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. I think his brother ended up being a garlic farmer. I think that's what they were ending up to. They wanted to get to California and be farmers and just get away from home. And there were a lot of children, and I think they just figured out they needed to head somewhere else. So kind of interesting how they ended up here very accidentally.
Yeah. And then talk about the start of the business.
So 1933, heart of the Depression. My great-grandmother and great-grandfather had a farm. It's actually where kind of like the auto mall is near the mall.
Okay.
That's where their farm was. My great-grandfather decided that they needed to sell it in order to make ends meet. They sold it and ended up buying the old Snodgrass Mill, is what it was called.
Okay.
That's the Fairview Avenue store that is there today. So that's
Okay.
the very first store. And they just started off by mixing feed. Literally, they would mix the feed on the ground with shovels, and then they would bag it up, and my grandmother would hand sew them. And
Wow.
that's how it all, very, very humble. And my brother and I laugh, like they did that for 20 years before we got a feed mill. Like 20 years they were doing that. That was their
So
work.
started in animal feed, ag base, certainly exploded into a whole bunch of everything else.
Yes.
But at that store, that's great.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah.
And then when did it really start growing?
Oh gosh, my grandfather grew it a little bit, and then my father and his brother are the ones who actually ended up really kind of expanding and blowing things up.
And your father's Jim.
Jim, yes, the man.
Jim from the radio, Jim the
Yes,
man, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. And talk about the evolution. Like talk about like it made sense probably because they were doing feed. They had all these people there that had the need. You filled the need and just kind of kept integrating vertically with what made sense, right?
Absolutely. And I think each generation had things that they had passion for.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was definitely more into gardening. So I think he's the one who began the process of adding gardening things. And then my dad is a mad scientist. I mean, if he could just be in his lab all day, that's what he would do. And he loves to invent things. And, he just does all these fun trials. And
How old your dad now?
let's see, he'll be 78 this year. Yeah.
Still running as hard as ever.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. Yeah. We always laugh that Zamzows never retire. Which I'm not sure. That may end with this generation.
that with this generation, I don't know that it's good for everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
If you've got something you love, and if you're cranking away, and
For sure. I know that if my dad, if he wasn't allowed to continue to invent products, he'd be very unhappy.
gosh, I have so many things I want to ask you, but let's start there because I know kind of the science and the kind of the marketing is Idaho soils, products for us in the valley, kind of a slant. But talk about the science behind it and why he loves it so much and why it's been so important to your growth.
I think it was people that he met when he was young, various people that helped him really understand the soil primarily.
Yeah.
That was his big thing. And understanding how nutrients behave in the soil, how the life that is in the soil behaves with the nutrients, and then how the plants behave when you have the nutrients and the life in the soil. Always been fascinating to him. He's got this long list of very interesting characters in his life that have taught him various things, and he holds on to that data. He's a very smart man, so he can tell you stories from way back about all these various things that he learned and how he learned them.
What's his educational background?
He went to Boise State. I think he was actually doing pre-vet medicine. I think that was the track that he was on. And then his father really put the pressure on for him to get a business degree because he wanted him to work in the business. And I think that was a turning point for my dad. So he had enough of the biology and understanding the science that he was like, okay, that's what I like, but I will do this business. I'm just going to figure out how to incorporate what I love into the business. So there was kind of an interesting moment in time, I think, there where he made the decision, okay, I'll go ahead and go with the business, but I'm going to bring the science with me, see what we can do.
So he formulates truly all of the, and I'm so in full confession here as a long time customer, because I lived for 20 plus years down at Chinden and Eagle.
Okay.
And your store's right down the street
Yes.
there, right? So that was where we went for everything.
Sure.
So you look at those shelves and the products, how many products did you develop that into? I mean, it's
a lot of them.
hundreds? I mean, it's a lot.
Well, yes, if you include, so we have the Zamzow company, but then we also have other companies and we distribute in other ways as well that have nothing to do with Zamzows.
Yeah.
So yeah, there literally are hundreds of products. And some, I was laughing with him the other day, he has one right now that he's letting go because, and he's like, I can't really do anything with it right now because I can't get anybody to pick up and do anything with, and I'm ready to move on and do something else. And so he actually has some that we haven't even marketed.
So it is kind of about the next thing. And,
very much.
Yeah.
He gets bored. Once he figures something out, he really understands it, then he's like, okay, I got to do something else now.
Does he have a lab?
He does. He has a lab in his house. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, and he always has experiments. If you go into the lab, he'll come in and say, "Come look at this," and we'll be like, "Okay, what am I looking at?"
What a fascinating.
Yeah.
You should have had him on with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he just does. That's what he does for fun. And then what's the team like? Do you have a team that then? I mean, it's not as easy as figuring this thing out. And then
Right.
I mean, talk about go to market and those ideas. And it's an incredible Idaho company, small business that's doing great things. So
Yeah.
how do you scale it then?
Well, so I think in the beginning, I think he really tried to find partners who could do it, but they didn't understand what he had come up with.
Yeah.
There wasn't any sort of precedence there. So then he was like, all right, well, we're going to figure out how to manufacture this at a bigger scale. So with the fertilizer products, he just said, all right, I'm going to figure this out. So he's a wonderful, figure it out through other people, like meet somebody, okay, teach me this. Okay, now I understand that. Now I can do this. So yeah, he ended up building his own little fertilizer manufacturing
It's the old
facility.
see one, do one, teach one.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's very inspirational to watch how he does things because he doesn't really take no for an answer. Like if he hits a brick wall, he's like, oh, that didn't work that direction. I'm going to try this direction. And he seems to do that very well.
A lot to learn from that.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot to learn from that. So then you do have your own. You have your own. Do you do a lot of the manufacturing here? Do you have partners in the region, or how do you produce so much product?
Well, it depends on the product, but when it comes to the fertilizer, currently we're pretty close to capacity right now, honestly. So we're kind of working on building out. But right now we're able to do our own fertilizer. We handle all that in-house. Some of our, we have the feed mill in Meridian, the old feed mill that's still fully operational, still kicking out our formulas, and so that actually has gotten to capacity where we have to have toll millers do some of our milling for us.
It's incredible that right there downtown.
It's so amazing how many people don't think that it's still a functioning mill, and it's a very functioning
And it's
mill.
very cool because if you think of the heritage of Meridian, Meridian's grown. I can't even believe what Meridian's done, right?
No, it's wild. And when my great-grandfather jumped off the train and ran into town, he was probably running past that mill as it was being constructed. The time frame is such that he probably ran past the construction site.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then how long have you owned that mill? I'm just thinking how long after he ran by it, getting off the train, your family bought it.
Yeah, so it's probably 30 years later, so in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a flour mill originally, so for human consumption. So it's a very clean mill. Everything is made so that it can be, ingested by humans. So it's a very, lots of added things that a normal mill wouldn't have.
Are you also in farming too then? Or do you buy from farmers?
We buy from farmers, yeah. Yeah.
And then have, I know what you have, but for those listening, you have, actually, can we go to the website here? So your fertilizer, you got the feed side, fertilizer feed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just fascinated by how you have so many different things.
I know.
Well, it's not a little family business. It's a big family business, but how many employees do you have?
Well, it depends on the season. Right now we're in spring, and we're at about 200.
Yeah. So all of this, and then Grandma Z's, talk about that. What does that refer to?
So that's considered our high end, mostly feed items. So high end things and our dog foods and things like that. My great grandma, she was I think in her 90s when they developed that brand, and she was very opposed to it. She said, I cannot. Dad, this is not good. And she kept pushing back. And then finally one day she was meeting with my father, and she said, Jim, will it help the company if we do this brand? And my dad said, yeah, it will. And she said, okay, I'll do it. So
the Grandma Z's is here's all the stuff that I've just bought. The tomato boom. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic product. That's all made with feed ingredients. So we make that out of our feed mill, which is unique. It's not like from our fertilizer division. It's it's all very healthy, edible items.
Will you talk a little bit about that? Because I know in today's world, there's a lot of stuff I listen to and I'm learning about, but just about soils and the depletion of minerals and everything else in the soil. And then the flip side of it is just the safety of what is put on our plants and vegetables and pesticides and what they mean and what's safe and what's not safe.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
My latest thing has just been chemical fertilizer in particular. seem like they're just fine. They're just nutrients. It's not that big of a deal. My concern, and it's only because my father has taught me this, is what it's doing. On the surface, it's really not that big of a deal. But when you look at what happens to the living things in the soil, all the microbes and everything that are breaking down things and making things healthy, when we put chemicals in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just a fertilizer, it causes a disruption in that balance. And so it matters. It matters what we kind of still have to be. Even with things that seem so little, like what am I going to put on my tomatoes, that matters because in the end, you're actually improving or degrading your soil. And, on a large scale, we're doing that in farming in general, that's happening. At a small scale, just in your yard, you'll find that you'll be happier and that everything will be better in your yard if you just try to cut back on things that are affecting the life in the soil.
Yeah, and it's always nice when things that are good for soils and environment also line up with what's good. It's just good when you have synergies like that where you're like, hey, take care of it. It's better for you. It's better for the environment. And that's when there's a win-win for everybody, right?
I agree. And I think the fun part about my dad's products is that they always work.
Yeah.
Like he wouldn't, he messes with it and messes with it and messes with it until he's like, that's it. Now it works. And it's all stuff that's going to be improving everything else. It's going to be doing a lot of things behind the scenes that you have no idea that it's doing.
Who comes in behind Jim?
That's a good question.
Is there someone else in the family that's got that passion for the science part of it?
There are a mix of people that have various parts of various things, but there's no
Jim.
There's no
He's
other
the
Jim Zamzow.
OG.
He's the OG for sure. Yeah, I think with the combination of various people that we've kind of pieced it together. But as far as just he has such a heart for it.
Yeah.
And that's such a unique thing. He's really driven to make the world a better place, starting with the earth and with the soil. Yeah.
Do you always have that?
I think so. He describes when he was a child kind of, not being kind of considered stupid. I think he was told many times as a kid that he was kind of dumb. And I think I think that caused him to turn to, well, I'm going to figure things out myself then. If the teacher thinks I'm an idiot, then I'm just going to go and figure out things on my own. So I think he probably did. I think he probably has always had that.
It's always what's always interesting. I get to one of the reasons I like doing this is you learn and talk to fascinating people and hear stories, mostly of businesses, small businesses, people that have really been passionate about something and then done great things. But when you hear some of the origin stories, right? So clearly there was an origin story before your dad, but then you hear the passion, energy, effort, time, commitment. There is always a reason that is genuine and authentic and is on fire that burns beneath these folks that do great things. It just is. And it's really fun to see it because you hear the story and you're like, oh, that's why. Like you look at those products that we just scrolled through, they're authentic. There's probably a story behind every single one of them.
Absolutely. And a lot of times he invents something for one thing, but then he realizes that it's too soon, the public won't get it. And so he's like, well, it also does this. So that's what we'll sell it for is this. And then people will
That's
get the
interesting.
benefit.
So he's a pretty good marketing guy too.
He does have an idea for that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about you in the company growing up. Did you always know you wanted to follow in the path of the family business?
I think people ask me that. I'm almost 50 and like literally I'm knocking on 50.
When's your birthday?
June 6th.
Oh, wow.
So it's,
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. It's an interesting transition period for me. And my daughter is heading off to college this fall. And so there's this like kind of reckoning and looking back on like, where am I, what was happening before and where I am now. And so I've thought a lot about that. I think as a small child, I did want to. I think I always thought that I was going to be part of the family business. When I went off to college, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and so I kind of went that path. And then I couldn't get into vet school. I tried for 3 years in a row, and that was a no-go. And then I still didn't want to turn to the family business. I ended up going to work for Merrill Lynch and tried stockbroking for a while, and I really tried to fight it. And then when I ultimately came into the business, everything clicked. I was like, oh, I think this is totally what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I kind of embraced it and realized, okay, yeah, this is, and it's been 25 years now. So,
yeah, I think when you have a family business, when you talk to people that do, there probably is a little bit of that push and pull thing of hey, it's all I've known growing up, it kind of consumes things because if you're running a small business and a family business, it's kind of what you do, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure your stories of growing up were all involve the business and things surrounding the business. So I understand when sometimes there's this yearning of, well, maybe I want to get out of here. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Absolutely. Well, and I think also that the name is so big and it's been going for so long. How do I be my own person and not be just, another cog,
Yeah.
and it's family. So there's a love part of that, but then there's that individuality where you're like, wait a minute, what mark am I going to make? It's very clear what my great grandfather did, what my grandfather did, what my father has done. Where will I go? Where will I fit in?
And I think that's where the magic happens, right? If you can find your own passion within something that already has so much legacy and heritage, it's your dang legacy and heritage, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that Zamzows spirit runs through your blood, and if you can then connect to that, I think it becomes a beautiful thing. But you kind of have to get there through your own way, right?
Absolutely.
And I think people that don't authentically have that drive and passion, then it's a different deal, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So, how many kids did your mom and dad have?
2. So my brother and I work together. We're actually co-CEOs, which is always a topic of conversation.
I saw that. Yeah. How does that go? Is he older or younger?
He's older. He's by just 2 years, so we're pretty close in age. We've always been very close, and so this isn't anything new. He and I working together, and we work kind of in sometimes I'm really amazed at how well we co-think. We bump into heads sometimes. On occasion, we will bump into each other, and mostly it's because we haven't communicated well. So for he and I, our latest thing has just been working on really, really clear communication, which seems really strange for your sibling. You think you communicate with them well, but when you run a business together, the communication has to go to a totally different level. And we've had to explore some interesting things to kind of make sure that we're all that we have each other's backs.
Yeah, people that know me get sick of hearing this, but it's that vision, clarity, plan, action, right?
Yeah.
A lot of great companies, people, things, projects fail without clarity.
Absolutely.
And it's so critical. And the problem with it is, I was talking to my partner here, Ryan, about this week. We get going so fast and hard that the first thing to slip is clarity, because hey, we've got this combined vision and we're going. Let's go.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden we're like, hey, where did we get off step here? So it just it makes, it's common sense, right? But it takes effort.
Absolutely.
Conscious effort to how are we going to communicate, stay on the same page.
Exactly. And especially I think our team, because my brother and I'll be running and then we're like, where is everybody? Oh, wait, we maybe forgot to tell them.
Right.
So that happens on occasion.
And something with your team, they trust you. Mm-hmm. They'll follow you, but if they understand your heart and mind and reason for where you're going, it's better.
Absolutely.
It's easier to follow.
And it's a lot more fun.
But that takes conscious effort too, right?
It does.
Talk a little bit about that. With that many employees, just creating a team. I'm going to tell you, we've never talked about this, but I don't know how many years I went to your store over there, and so cycled through lots of different employees, but the culture of people was always exceptional.
I love hearing that.
I can think of in all those years, never, it was just pleasant and helpful and wonderful and the kindest people. So I think, I know the brand, the name means a lot because it's your name on it, but how did you create, how did you and how do you create and maintain a culture?
Yeah, I think that this is something that we're consistently working on. I think that my brother and I are particularly, this is the area that we enjoy the most, working with people, developing people. And I think that it starts with, strangely enough, it just starts with the brand itself, because a lot of employees come to work for us because they like what we do. They like the plants, they like the animals, they like that we're earthy, and so that's why they are even attracted to us. So then we have that like together, and so it makes for it kind of builds itself, I think. But we're always doing things as a group that are in keeping with what we're doing in the business as well. So
the mission statement, vision they're not just words on the wall.
Right.
they're the heart and soul and mind of everyone that works there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just, as you were saying that, I'm thinking it's also pretty dang pleasant to be like working in a nursery
Right.
around plants and just,
It's wonderful.
generally happy people. And
Absolutely.
it is a very good environment, right? And that probably, it's not like, I don't know, other high pressured probably places where
Right.
it's a little harder to do. But customer service is still the same.
It is.
How you interact, how
is.
you sell, how you treat people, how you're, are you educated on products? There's still a lot to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How does that work?
You know, that is one of the biggest challenges that we have, because every spring we get this influx of
Yeah.
seasonals that come in, and so there's this massive amount of training. You have to have that spark or the interest in plants,
thing,
or
yeah.
yes, or else they tend to spin out and not stay because it's not. I mean, it just has to be part of who you are, is that you're interested in learning, and then sometimes what comes out of somebody who's been an employee for 3 to 5 years even is like these experts. Like they become, pillars in our business because they are like the foremost expert on this particular type of, lizard, for instance. And, it's amazing how that, then, we celebrate that. Then they're teaching other people. And so there's this kind of wonderful community of learning. Learning is a big part of what we do.
I'm going to go all
Teaching
over
and
the
learning.
place, but I'm going to ask you now. So I've been fascinated by this because my kids over the years have obviously bought their lizards from you. But how did you decide? Because not all stores are the same, and you have some that have animals for sale and some that don't. And then the types of animals you have some exotic things that. So whose passion is that, and what's that algorithm look like?
Yeah. In the beginning, I think the ones who had pet rooms, this is before my brother and I, really those employees were there for many, many years, and they began to develop. Each store had their own, development of which animals that they liked or they knew, and that sort of thing. It has continued on in that when we bring people in, they are attracted to, like, I want to work in the pet room because I am, a fish expert or whatever. And so it's so people-centric as far as.
Well, and hey, I'm assuming there's a lot of new people to the Valley that might be listening to this.
Oh, sure.
You've seen how many stores do you have now in the Valley?
12.
So you have 12 stores. So you've driven by one or seen them, but talk through, because it is a big, like you've got the fertilizer, you got the plants, you got the gardening, you got the home. There's a little home improvement, but then you've got the pet thing. How many of the stores have pets?
Well, now we actually have all of them do.
They all do?
Yes. The smaller stores, we used to not have them, but now we call it the Zamzow.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't know that because you didn't down in off Chinden.
Right. Exactly.
The whole time.
I think that happened.
That was my store, so.
Yeah, sometime in the last 3 years, I think.
We would have to drive somewhere else with our kids. And
Yeah.
Try to talk them out of getting the whole kit for whether it was. I never did snakes.
Yeah.
I did everything else though. And you have lots of fish, you have reptiles, you have birds.
Yes. Yes. We even have insects now that are exotic insects that people keep in terrariums. And yeah, it's amazing. It's evolving, ever evolving.
Oh, it's diverse. I mean,
is.
it's like you think about how fun it would be to run something like that where you get to oversee all of that. Hey, what's it like? I always like women CEOs to ask these questions, but what's it like being a CEO and being a woman in your industry and
Interesting.
in the Valley?
I was speaking with some fellows when we're women, but we were talking about that. And I think what's interesting, particularly about my age group, is that if we are women leaders, we were probably taught how to be a leader by a man. Likely we were led by a man, which is different. Men lead differently than women do. And I think that for me personally, it's been a journey of learning how to go from a hard edge that I thought I had to have in order to make it and be taken seriously to this much more authentic me that is now. And I'm so much happier. And it turns out that people like to be led by a leader who's authentic and not one who's trying to be something they're not.
Isn't that true?
Absolutely. And there's just so much more joy to it.
Yeah, it's always an interesting question for me to ask because I came up through healthcare, and most of my leaders and mentors were women.
Oh, interesting.
If you think about healthcare, I mean,
Yeah.
like literally almost the entire way through, the leaders of my department, the leaders in the hospital, the leaders were women. And so it was only when I kind of started transitioning out that I'm like, oh, it's just different, right?
Yeah.
In fact, you'd be in some rooms and there's just not as many women in the corporate banking and that kind of world. So
Sure.
it's been interesting, and it's always like you just said, most of the leaders you were around were probably men, and now you're taking over. But for me, it's an interesting perspective.
Absolutely.
What are the traits that you think have helped you? You said authenticity. What are the other tricks of the trade for those listening to? A lot of people listen that are just looking to improve their leadership and the way they mentor and lead other people. What do you find important to you?
I mean, my journey to being more authentic has meant that I've had to look at things that I truly love and the things that make me tick. And I think we have to connect with that. We have to understand that and lean into that and not feel, because I'm a people-y person. And I think that sometimes when I think back on how the prior generations of the Zamzows ran things and what their personality types were, it's very different than mine. And I think for a long time I tried to deny myself that. And so I think in order to be a good leader, you do have to find your authentic self and own it, and be wholly yourself. I think continuing education is a must.
That's great.
Yeah, just you always try to learn and grow, and it doesn't necessarily have to be through books. So I think that's great, and seminars, that's great. I think it's getting to know other people, and learning from them and how they did things, and leaning into that too.
Don't you think that's one of the great, I think, misconceptions when you're younger, is that somehow the people above you are kind of just figured it out.
Right.
And then as you get older, I think the people that I like being around the most are the ones that are just, always learning. Always, hey, did you read this? Did you see that? Did you listen to this? And not just actively looking for ways that they might improve what strengths that they have, but they're also looking for their own weaknesses. Because I think as you get older, and I'm not, hey, listen, that was super sensitive,
No,
Callie.
it's not sensitive at all. Actually, I'm excited about being 50, so no biggie.
You are?
I am.
Okay.
I
I
am.
wasn't. It was a big one for me. But I think you start getting a little more reflective.
Absolutely.
And I don't think you stop growing. I'm 50, 57 now, 58. But you look at like growth and maybe blind spots and
yes.
things that I did that I could have been a better leader. I could have been a better dad. I could have been a better husband. I could have been a better whatever.
Absolutely.
And I think admitting that and saying, hey, there's some things I've learned along the way that it's hard though when you look back sometimes. You're like, I probably should have handled that different.
Oh, it's some of the hardest stuff ever to look back and regret, and then kind of give yourself a hug and say you did what you did at the time. It was the best you could do. Yeah. And with the tools you had, you have new tools now. That's why you can see it differently now and say I should have done that differently.
I'm older than you, but I think that is something new with our generation maybe, and our kids. I think there's a little bit more reflection than I think of my father or my father-in-law, or I think that generation before us stayed pretty stoic and hard. And I think it's okay to say, hey, I might have had that wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I think also as I send my daughter off to college, I am thinking back on what led to where we are now. There's a lot of thinking back right now about those kind of things. And I find myself, when she was younger, I kind of kept that all to myself. Now that she's 18 and she's heading out, I find myself actually expressing it to her. Hey, remember when this happened? I kind of wish I'd have done that differently, which has been, these conversations I could eat them with a spoon. They're just so good and delicious. And to have her say, oh, that's not how I saw it at all. And, and then talk it through.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really
awesome?
cool. Yeah, it really
are
is.
awesome.
I agree.
I don't know. I've been more reflective lately. I don't know. I don't know why, but and I'm taking. I think when you get inspiration or whatever you want to call it to express yourself to someone you love, you just got to jump all over it. I'm just thinking of this last week. I was listening to a Luke Combs song, and it was about his dad, and the line was, the S on his chest is starting to fade. And I stopped exactly in my tracks, and I wrote my dad a big long text. Like I was crying the whole time I did, and I just said, because that's kind of, I see him as my, this guy that was just Superman and never was going to get older.
Yeah.
And he sounds like he's about the same age as your father, but man, it meant a lot to him that I would stop and like reflect and say those words. But we need to do more of that.
I agree. It's interesting because I guess we're considered the sandwich generation. We're between our aging parents and our children that are adults now, and so it is an interesting space to pause for a moment and reflect on both, and really be fully present and not just rush through this particular phase, because I think this is really important.
I'm sure the one other thing I wanted to touch with you is mentorship. In your role, you probably have the ability to help and mentor a lot of people that work for you, around you. You're very influential. Do you enjoy that, is the first question.
It's one of my favorite things. Absolutely one of my favorite things. When you talk about things that make our heart sing, that is what makes my heart sing.
And then in that, do you have any advice? Because I think one of the big concerns I have as I look at my life now is I think the busyness of life, the introduction of just, this is not a negative on media or social media or whatever. I just think that there's not very much quiet time in our lives now. There's just not. And I think most of the time where I really was mentored by someone, I think back to those times in my life, it seemed quiet. It seemed like for me and my mentor, that there was times that we were able to reflect and connect. And I'm wondering if I create enough of those opportunities when I'm quiet and reflective to mentor someone. And then the second thing is, are they in a place to really make those connections? Seems like you have to be more deliberate today than in the old days.
Much more. With things being able to just be so, right in your face, and you can get quick answers to things. And the stopping, you almost have to, I think the first time, like have it be a forced, like put all these things in place to make it happen. And then once you've felt it, then it will constantly, it'll be there.
It feels good.
It feels real good.
And you're like, I want to do more of that. But that's been my latest thing. I'm going to try to consciously slow down and have interactions with the people that I love either way, and make sure that I'm still, I don't know. I think it's good to get old.
I think so too. This is why I say I'm not unhappy about turning 50.
Well, this is great. You got a new podcast out? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So we had the old Zamzows show. It's still on, at this point, it's still on in KBOI on Saturday mornings. It used to be that people would call in and we would answer questions, and that was kind of the Zamzows show.
By the way, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was very fun. Kind of ran its course. The reason why it ran its course is that nobody wants to work on Saturday morning and answer radio calls. So we've struggled with finding somebody who's willing to do that. And so but with podcasting, you can obviously do some of the same things, and people can listen whenever they want. So we're actually revamping the podcast, where it'll be rolling out here this summer. It'll be called The Nobody Knows. So
The Nobody Knows with a Z at the end.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And be able to be found on any one of the things.
Yep.
I'm sure that your topics will be much like your Saturday show was.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. And for people here in the Valley, very, very, very practical things.
Yes.
Like things that you would go, oh, I've never done it that way, and I should probably do it the way Grandma Z's been doing it for a long time.
Exactly.
Right?
And we want to build in some cultural things too about Boise and who we are and that sort of thing. So it'll be
that's great.
Good stuff. Yeah. I'm excited.
That's great. And what else business-wise? Anything else while you're here? Our time went by way, way, way fast.
It did go very fast. Really this is a lovely conversation.
But Zamzows.com, all your links there. For anyone that hasn't been in a store, nicest people, greatest products. I mean, I will tell you, though, I'm not Grandma Z. Shannon and I, we're planting our garden this weekend. We're going to come grab our stuff. But we've gone from being pretty prolific, like I don't know how many items we would put in there, to I think we're basically down to like a few kinds of tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, jalapenos. I think we're giving up on pumpkins this year.
Yeah, I mean, you get real practical. After you've done the big garden, you kind of get practical, and you're like,
We still love it, but we're just, I don't know.
easier things. There's something about a garden. I mean, it is work, So having a
So
smaller
fun,
garden,
though, isn't it?
It is, and there's just something about picking something that you grew.
It's awesome.
And eating, and it
making
tastes better.
salsa every year. It's so great.
It is
but
great.
but over the years, I just, in fact, when I think of that store, I know this is weird. I can think of what it smells like in there. Does that probably make sense to you, right?
It does. I know the smell.
Because when you walk into any Zamzows, it has the same smell
It's
of
the smell
the
of my
soil,
childhood. Yes.
and the greenhouse and it's got to be lovely to have that memory because it is earthy.
It's earthy. That's a really good example.
Right?
Yeah,
That's really cool. Hey, well, we appreciate what you do in the community. I mean, that's the other thing we didn't hit on. Maybe that's the place you could end is how much you love this place because I know Zamzows gives back. I mean, you're like, you think of the pillar companies born here, like this company starts and means so much to this valley. What does the community mean to you and your family?
It's everything. It really is everything. I think Zamzows plunked in a different community wouldn't exist. I think Boise and Zamzows go hand in hand. It's people have asked if we think about moving out of the valley, and we have, and we might at some point. It'll be an interesting experience because I think that there's something about Boise and Zamzows that work really, really well together.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and for what you do. It's been really fun to catch up.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody.